It is taken from the book of Nehemiah. It's a minor prophet in the Old Testament, chapter 4, verses 1 through 10. The scripture we read today is from the book of Nehemiah, who is a minor prophet who wrote about the restoration of the people of God and building back their ruined city. In around 600 BC, after King Solomon's kingdom came to an end, and after the time of King Solomon, the whole kingdom of Israel was divided. It's a little bit of history to know behind it. There were 12 tribes of Israel that you all know, and they all were united as one nation under David, and David became king, and then Solomon became king after the time of David, his son Solomon. But Solomon strayed away from God, even though he was a great king. He was very knowledgeable and full of wisdom, but he did not follow God's commandments all the time. So after his time, they did not have a good successor to lead the country. And eventually the kingdom was divided into two, the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom. The 11 tribes were in the northern part of the kingdom, and one tribe, the kingdom of Judah, was in the south. This was around 500, 600, 700 BC that we are talking about. And the northern kingdom with the 11 tribes eventually got conquered by many rulers, many like emperors around them, like the Babylonians and the Persians. They attacked the northern kingdom, and they also strayed away from God and started worshipping idols like the Egyptians. So they were scattered, and they left their homeland and spread all over the world. That's for the first spreading of the Jews that happened. But there was a little remnant, the southern kingdom, the kingdom of Judah, one tribe, that stayed faithful to God's commandments and faithful to God. And they were strong, and they continued to stay as a kingdom. But they were also threatened by the enemies, like the Babylonians and the Persians and others at other countries at that time that were trying to invade them. So around 500 BC, they were taken over by the king Nebuchadnezzar. And he did not destroy the whole country of Judah, but he decided to use the resources in Judah to build up his empire in this world. King Nebuchadnezzar then took a lot of his people from Judah. He took a lot of young people who are full of energy and who were used for he took them and educated them and gave them skills, because they were smart young people. So he took a lot of those people to his country and trained them to become skilled people in their country, and they were very good at learning crafts and skills. So they were a group of people who were taken to Babylon from Judah, became the migrants there, and they had left their home country and were taken to the kingdom of Babylon by King Nebuchadnezzar. But eventually, Jerusalem was destroyed by other countries, and their walls were knocked down and destroyed. And one of the people who actually was a migrant in Babylon who was taken by King Nebuchadnezzar was Zerubbabel. And when he heard that the kingdom of Judah was invaded by other enemies and destroyed the temple and the walls around it, he was really grief-stricken, and he was very sad. And he was a very close ally with the king, and he had a good job with the king's palace. And one day, the king noticed that he was very sad and gloomy. And he asked him, why are you so sad? And then he said, even though I am in a foreign land, I heard about the news of my homeland, kingdom of Judah. People have taken over and destroyed the temples and the walls around the temple, and I wanted to go back and rebuild the temple and the walls around it. So the king granted his wish, and he gathered a group of people from Babylon to go back to Judah to rebuild the temple. That's what the background of this story is. So when they came to the destroyed ruins of the temple and the land in Judah, they came with a group of people, and he came there. Some people, enemies, like when Sanballat and Tobias, and there were like 3 people who were mocking them. And that's what we read here today. When Sanballat heard that we were rebuilding the wall, he became angry and he was incensed. And he ridiculed the Jews. And he was telling, what are these feeble Jews doing here? Will they finish this in one day? Can they bring the stones back to life from those heaps of rubble, just as they are burnt as they are now? And one of them said, even a fox climbing upon their wall would break down their wall of stones. So that is what they faced when they got there. They started ridiculing them, making fun of them, and that made them go back to God in prayer, knelt down, and they were in tears, and we hear that, they hear us, O God, we are despised. Turn their insults back on them. That's what the prayer that they made when they heard the insults every day. So, when we go through times of ruin and destruction, and mocking and ridicule by our enemies around us, and say that we will never come back to life, there is no future for these people. There is a God who can build our lives back better than it was before, from the ruins. And that is what God's faithfulness that I want to bring to you today. That's why I saw that, Jace, if you can bring up that picture that I used for screensaver today, is about the 9/11 that happened 23 years ago. Many of those who are born after that or were children during that time do not know the intensity and the trouble that we all had to go through. And this is a double rainbow that appeared on 9/11 in 2023 that was broadcasted in pretty much all the news channels, and I captured that and saved it. It's a double rainbow, unusually, happening on 9/11 in 2023. Even though the whole world thought that we were destroyed because of our financial center was in ruins, pretty much it shattered down to a bunch of rubble. That's what happened. And the enemies thought that we are done. We will not revive and get up and become strong again. That's what the purpose was and the intent was behind it. But looking back about 23 years now, those who have gone through it, we have only praise and thanksgiving to God. Even with all the troubles that we had to go through, and the grief, and the agony of so many families, and about, I think, 3,500 to 4,000 people died, and their families' agony. After 23 years, we can only thank God for His faithfulness. We didn't like what happened. It was painful. But we were able to experience the faithfulness and the grace of God when we all got together and trusted a living God. And He took our rubbles and our stones and built a better and a stronger America after that. And you and I are the witnesses for it. So no matter what happens in our lives, when we go through troubles like that and the world around us mocks us and tells us that there is no future for these people, can they and like they said, can they bring life to these dead stones? All of these rubbles? God can bring life to the dead stones and bring stronger and better future from the rubbles and the ruins. God is a faithful God, and He continues to be faithful. There is a saying that you probably all heard, that sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. But we can say that for good, but at the same time, sticks and stones can also break our hearts and our minds too. Because of the ruins and the destruction that can happen with sticks and stones. What do we do when we are hit with those kind of sticks and stones? And our life and our situations around us become the rubble of stones of rubble. We can look at those stones and say that even from these rubbles and stones, God can rebuild, and He will build a better and a stronger future for us. As personal lives, we can also take that from this story. So the stones in our path, there might be so many different stones that we have to encounter in our path. The stones of ruin, stones of rubble that these people faced when they went to rebuild their city. There are stones of other things that are going to be blocking our future and our path forward. It could be stones that we have to overcome. It may be our health. It may be a broken relationship. It may be something at work or something from the family. That as we grow forward, these stumbling blocks or stones are on our paths. But those are there. Those are real. We cannot ignore it. But we have to overcome them. And one of the sayings that I read was, the hills are there to climb on, not to climb around it. The hills are to climb on. We have to overcome the stones in our path. So there are stones, this particular people, when they came there and rebuilt, their stones were, even though they saw the rubbles and the stones that they have rebuilt from them, but they have other stones and blocks that they have to overcome. First of them, one of them was the stones of contentment and complacency. Many times they thought that, let us give up and go back. There's no point in rebuilding it. Just stay where we are. We are happy in a foreign land. Why do we have to go and rebuild our own native land? The stones of complacency that came. But at that time, we have to overcome. They had to overcome that stones of complacency and contentment, and go forward to do the work of God, to rebuild that temple and the walls around it. If we get bogged down with contentment, we will never grow. We will get lazy. But people who have taken the steps to grow forward always never content with what they had. I had learned about a story about Betty Nesmith, a secretary in a Dallas bank. She discovered or invented something called the whiteout. You know, the whiteout used to be, right now we don't use whiteout anymore. We don't use typewriters, right? But when we had typewriters, we used, we cannot delete a word like we do on computers. So we used something called whiteout. She was a secretary in a bank building in Dallas. And she was a typist also. When she typed a lot of letters, she had to go back and retype all of them. She said, there got to be a better way to do this. So she concocted some solution in her kitchen. And she used it on her own typewriter papers to white out the marks and started that. And her friends and people around in the same office saw what she was doing. So it's a great idea. So she shared that with them. And the whole office spread like that, and she started making it more. And then she decided to market it because it has a good market. Anyway, this was going back, probably about 100 years back. Eventually, she started her own company, and then she approached some people to market it. And they said, well, this is not going anywhere. This is just like a paste. You can use something else. They just discounted it. But eventually, I believe one of those big companies called the Gillette company that makes the razors, They bought that from her for $45 million. We are talking about that time. And it just went all over the world. And you and I know that how many of whiteouts do I have in my drawers, even now, that I have used before. So if she had been discouraged by the negative words that the other companies told her when she approached them, she would have been discouraged and she would have been complacent with what she had and just forget it. But she continued to work and continued to call different companies until she got, I don't know how many companies she called. Somebody knew the worth of it and took that from her. And this was like years ago. So we should not be left with the rubbles and ruins of complacency and contentment like these people. The stones are a reality. We have to get over them. We have to get over our complacency. Then the stones of ridicule and condemnation. Whenever we start something new, or we start a project, or we start a ministry, there's going to be always ridicule and condemnation. Oh, this is not going to work. We have tried this before several times. This pastor tries this again. He's, somebody, I have heard this so many times in many churches saying that, oh, we have tried it so many times. When you want to try it and become a fool of yourself, so go ahead. So we will get all the ridicules and condemnation about the things that we plan to do. But God wants His people to be stronger, to get over those kinds of stones and rubbles of condemnation and ridicule, so that we can go forward and build up His kingdom in this world without being stopped by these kind of rubbles and stones that we have to face. No matter what we are going through, we have to get over these stones in our lives. They are a reality. Then the stones of despair and exhaustion. We read that towards the end of that passage we read here today. Meanwhile, the people of Judah said, the strength of our laborers are giving out. There is so much rubble that we cannot rebuild the wall. They were exhausted because so much rubble. And we went to Iceland this couple of weeks ago. So much rubble there. And I said, how do people live there? Because of the volcanoes that erupts every 3 or 4 years. All the lava comes there, and it comes with all that charred stuff over there. That's all you see there. Even everywhere you go, these black, rubbles and stones. No plants grow there. There's nothing there. But they make a living there. I mean, they try to continue to live there. They're happy with what their life there is. But when I look at those things, and it says about exhaustion and despair when you look at those kind of life there. But God, as God's people, God wants us to get over this kind of despair and exhaustion. It is natural that we get tired. Sometimes we want to give up because it's so much work. How are we going to finish this? But Sanballat and his people, and encouraged by the prophets like Nehemiah, who told them about the promise of God, that if you trust in God and His power, He can work miracles. Even in the rubbles, He can rebuild life and give you a better future. So don't get exhausted and despair because of all the things that we have in our front that we have to do. So some projects are short term and some projects are for long term. We have to stay the long term run in the projects that we have to take in some cases. So the troubles of worries and cares of life were more difficult for them to overcome. So they were tempted to go back, giving up on the work. So God has given us many opportunities to do in this community. And the opportunities that give us, some of them are easy, some of them are very difficult. But we are here for the long term, to continue to do His work, to be a blessing to this community, even with all the stones and the blocks that we have to overcome through. Giving God our best in the face of exhaustion, even when we are tired and feel like giving up. If we are committed to give God our best, even in our weakness, God will take and honor it. When I was young, I used to sing in a choir, and I'm talking about my teenagers. And we were practicing a song one time, and it's a very difficult song. And we were exhausted after practicing for like an hour. We said, let us find another song. This is not going to work. Then the choir master was very upset that he wanted to make us sing that song. So we continued to practice, and one of our members said, anyway, let us sing that. 99% of the people don't know the difference, and if you make a mistake only. Then the choir master said, no. We are going to sing for that 1%. That is what excellency is. And he encouraged us, and we did it, and everybody appreciated it. So don't give up. Let us continue to do for that 1%, that God is looking for that 100% from us. And he is faithful to help us through if we put our mind to it and faithful to his promises. So Nehemiah was not discouraged or frightened by the circumstances or enemies. We saw that all those, Sanballat, Tobiah, and Geshem, they were ridiculing them and making fun of them. Even they threatened them physically. So they had to actually fight against them physically to continue to do their work. And they did finish the work of the temple and the wall that they rebuilt, even with all these difficulties that they had to go through. So remember, as God's people, let us continue to do God's work. And also in our lives, when we are faced with stones of condemnation and ridicule, stones of discouragement and exhaustion, and tiredness and about to give up, remember that God is faithful. In the past, he was faithful in the past. He will be faithful today, and he will continue to be faithful in the future. Let us trust ourselves in his hands. May the good Lord bless us with these words as we go from this place to be faithful witnesses for his love in this world.